step a note higher than before.
I'd like to say thank you, Operational Excellence Cluster, for that very inspiring and wonderful message in song. Now arise, for the morning light has come. The Lord has risen, has come. So it truly prepares our hearts for this morning's message. And today is our day 4 for our week of prayer with the theme, assimilating from his disciples, encounter with Jesus. From the word assimilate, as I have referred to the Webster's Dictionary, it's an action word. Assimilate, so meaning it is catching up mentally or ingesting or absorbing mentally. So I truly believe that during the times that our disciples had this encounter with Jesus, they were able to assimilate mentally, absorbing mentally the lessons that they have learned throughout their encounter with Jesus. And I truly would like to pray that as we have also our encounter with our disciples this week, then we will be able to assimilate, to absorb mentally the lessons that we are going to learn throughout the week. Happy morning, beautiful and handsome co-workers. Okay, so I've seen some who are smiling, some wala lang. No? Don't you believe that you are beautiful and handsome? Is it too good to be true? Or maybe after you will be able to see your face in the mirror, then you will see that, yes, indeed, I am beautiful and handsome. No? But the time you were in your mother's womb, God created you wonderfully and fearfully according to His own image. So the mirror has nothing to do with your beauty anyway, because you are created. You are God's masterpiece. Isn't it amazing? Okay, now this morning we are going to study the life of a very wonderful person. And he is called Thomas Didymus. Thomas Didymus. Now, acknowledging this, we will be able to see that chances are that we know Thomas as doubting Thomas. Diba? So, pinaka-known yun si Thomas as that gilibilan siya as doubting Thomas. He was given this label because he simply did not believe when Jesus was resurrected. And so he's identified with a story in John's Gospel about needing to touch Jesus' wounds from the crucifixion before he'd believe, but this isn't all there is for Thomas. Now, the apostle might have been one of the two twins in his family because his name, Thomas, Didymus, means the twin. But the Bible is silent as to kinsa iyahang ka-twin. No, wala na siya identify sa Bible. But he is usually better known as or referred to more often, unfortunately, as Doubting Thomas. Now, who is Thomas, or who was Thomas Didymus? According to Matthew 10:3, it is recorded also in Mark 3:18. Thomas the twin, as he was known, was one of the 12 disciples who is presented as an active figure in the ministry of Jesus in the Gospel of John. And as we can narrate, there are 12 disciples of Jesus, and Thomas was one amongst the 12 disciples. We have there Simon, Peter, James, John, Andrew, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, Thaddeus, Simon, and Judas Iscariot. So these disciples were ordinary everyday people, just like the old song without God uses ordinary people. He uses people who are willing to do what He commands. And we too can be one of Jesus' disciples in these modern times. To carry out the great task commissioned to us, share Him in the neighborhoods everywhere. O dili lang kay silang Thomas or the other disciples or kini sila na ang disciples of Jesus, but we too can be one of Jesus' disciples in these modern times. Now, the more we learn about our disciples, the better we understand the New Testament and how Jesus used people just like us to plant His church. Thomas, like the other disciples, was God's chosen one. Have you ever wondered as to why are you here in Adventist Hospital, Davao? The time I entered the door of Adventist Hospital Cebu, in Miller Hospital, I asked myself, why am I here? No? And then I eventually realized that each one of us has its own purpose according to God's plan. And I eventually asked myself, I'm the only worker in the office na dili ka sa doang own school. And then I don't like also to work at Adventist Hospital Davao since we live so far from Miller Hospital. We live in Lapu-Lapu Island. No? So I was really wondering why am I here? So same with the disciples, Thomas Didymus was the chosen one of God. And He too can choose us as His modern times disciple. Thomas was apparently Jesus' chosen one, and we too can become one. According to 1 Corinthians 1:27, but God has chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. Thomas, aside from being one of Jesus' disciples, he was also the disciple who was really ready to die with Christ. As I studied the life of Thomas, I really appreciated the, shall we say, kinibitong iyahang kaiso, being brave and loyal to his master. It is recorded in John 11:16. Try to read it when you reach your home or in your offices. Remember, the Jews had earlier accused Christ of blasphemy. Before, when you go to places and then preach about the gospel of Jesus, sometimes dili mutu ang mga tao, and then the Jews had really this accusation gets to Jesus that he blasphemed God because He really claimed to be the Messiah. And they prepared to stone him as prescribed by the law of Moses. Despite the obvious ill feeling against him that existed in some Jewish circles, Jesus decided to return to Jerusalem area and visit Mary, Martha, and their home in Bethany. Bethany is just near Jerusalem. So when Jesus announced his intention to go back to Bethany because he received an invitation or a news that his dear friend Lazarus had died, wala isa sa ilahang mga disciples who boldly say, I will go with you instead of Thomas. Thomas tried to dissuade him, for it had been in Bethany that some Jews had tried to stone Jesus. Walay isa sa mga disciples, aside from Thomas, who's really willing to die with Christ during that time. And in fact, nangahadlok sila na mabalik sa Jerusalem. Why? Because they all knew that the Jewish leaders were really trying to find ways to seize Jesus. And although we all know that Christ's crucifixion has come to its near fulfillment, however, human plans has nothing to do with God's timeline. Sa pag-unsay buhaton sa mga tao, God's time will always prevail. So therefore, bisan pa mato siguro siya o hindi, nakaset na siya, no? Nga God will really have to be crucified. Thomas, however, insisted that they not let Jesus go alone, even if that meant risking their own lives. Let us also go and die with him. He said in John 11:16, then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, also his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. Now, in practical application, kung ato siyang tanaw sa itong in modern times nowadays, now Thomas was ready to die with Jesus. From the word that we may die with him, this is really a physical death. Dili ni siya ingon nga unsa nga death. This is really physical death, that he would like to be with Jesus and die together with Jesus when he go back to Jerusalem. So gusto si Thomas na muunong ni Jesus. Even up to death. Kung mamatay si Jesus, then mamatay sa liko. That was Thomas' thinking. Thomas had this great love to Jesus. So dako kayang gugma even to the point na nuno na siya sa kaugalingon, I love my Lord, so I'm really willing to die with Him. How about us? Are we willing to die with Jesus? Now, I have remembered this. When I read this statement, I remember a very inspiring text or message from the Word of God in 1 John 3:16, diba? John 3:16 is for God so loved the world that He gave His only Son. Ang 1 John 3:16 is, it says there, this is how we know what love is. So, iniwan nato sa pag-identify kung unsa tinuod jud nga gugma. When Christ laid His life to us, to the people, or when Christ laid down His life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. No? This is a very strong statement from Jesus. In 1 John 3:16, this is how we know that what love is, when Jesus Christ laid down His life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers. Was there some point in your life that you are willing to die for your brother? And I truly believe, no, during this time, Thomas was not just a mere disciple of Jesus, nagkakuyog-kuyog na niya, but however, deep inside the heart of Thomas, Jesus was not only his Messiah, was not only his master, but He was also his brother. E magpakamatay tungod ug alang kaniya. We heard some news of mga tao karon ng mga batanon nga committing suicide because of broken heart, because they are broken-hearted, but this is a different story. Now, this has a different implication in the life of Thomas when he said that he will go with Jesus and die with him. Sometimes gamay lagi ng mga pagsulay, usahay, mabiya na sa Ginoo. Now, Thomas was a devoted disciple. Many a man claims to have unfailing love, but a faithful man who can find? Isn't it sad that we have picked out a bad patch in Thomas' life and labeled the whole of it because of the one mistake? Isa ra gid iyang mistake. He did not believe during the time that Jesus had risen. Yes, he displayed doubt, but he displayed loyalty too. According to Brother Harris, isn't it amazing? Diba, Brother Harris? Isn't it amazing? Amazing. Like Thomas, that he was willing to die with Jesus, are we willing also, not basically yun yung physical death that we will die with Jesus, but somehow in spiritual aspect, are we willing to defend our faith? Are we willing to defend our relationship with Christ in any circumstances? Now, please allow me to share a little of my experience when I was still in MSU AHD. It's a university in Mindanao in Iligan, and then Sabbath is not really, shall we say, it's not a kind of a big issue to us as member of the Movement of Adventist Students or the Mas Amigos, because we were used to defend the Sabbath to the point that somehow during on my fourth year, naming marketing activity na na-full yun siya sa Sabbath, but kaya siya, isa na sa meaning na mga Sabbath trials during sa time pa from K1 to post-grad. But then up to the point na di ka makagraduate because of that, and during sa times mga Sabbath classes, I would always go to the front and plead to my classmates. And then I would always receive kani mga insults, mga mockery nila nga, si Grace, nala ni mo, nagsabay sa ka? Ako ba ni mo? Magkatoliko ka, kakaon kag baboy, pertik lumia. Magina always sila ginastorya sa kuha. And then every time po, ganun, di ba, maghuman ng klase. Di ba naman ay shifting of teacher? So before mo sunod akong teacher, na mag-always dala ng Bible, ako nasa lang Bible studyhan, in front. So parang, siya, it's a way of, it's really a conviction, no? But then, I've been used of defending the Sabbath, even though I have a classmate who is also an SDA, but the time na mag-exam na ko sa Sabado, mo apisan siya. Pero, kaning Domingo mo apisan siya, Kangyo, pero nag-exam na siya sa Saturday. However, during those kinds of circumstances, no, I would say that we are blessed because we have tried to defend our faith, and I truly believe that you have also defended your faith in your circumstances that may be depending on sa inyong situation. But Thomas' declaration of loyalty is significant and quite moving. It may not be physical na inaaman ko yung mga missionaries nowadays that they have also experienced physical death. They were tortured, there were mga trials nila pertikta ko because of defending God. Now, that was truly significant and quite moving. Now, aside that Thomas was Jesus' disciple, he was devoted, he also asked where Jesus was going. Thomas also asked him one of the most famous questions recorded in John 14:5-6. Thomas said to him, "Lord, we don't know where you are going, so how can we know the way?" Jesus answered, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." Kasi Jesus, he was using mga flowery words, mga parable. And then Thomas, being a plain spoken person, he doesn't like mga flowery words. So Thomas really challenged asking questions from God. Jesus had just been teaching his disciples about his imminent departure to heaven, promising that after he has prepared a place for them, he will return to take them to their heavenly home. One of the statements Jesus makes is this: "You know where I am going." He was speaking to the disciples. "You know where I am going and how to get there." Thomas strongly disagrees with this statement and says, "No, we don't. We haven't any idea where you are going, so how can we know the way?" No? Para sa kay Thomas, or I know even to the disciples siguro, they missed the very important message from God. But it is only Thomas who dared, or he boldly asked question. And Thomas don't hesitate to challenge anything about which he is uncertain. And although some may regard his approach as rude or impertinent, obviously Jesus does not think so, for he responds to him by making his point clearer still: "I am the way, the truth, and the life." No? Kung wala na mo tanong si Thomas at to, ma-express ba morely ni Jesus? Although Jesus can still deliver his words, but have you considered that if Thomas had not questioned Jesus' statement here, we might never have had the beautiful description of Jesus being himself the way. Diba? Once again, the point is, brought home, never be afraid to ask searching or probing questions. During sa time nga gisulti ni Jesus sa iha mga disciples, na ay mga confusions sa minds mga disciples. However, it was only Thomas who challenged the description or the statement of Jesus. And sometimes we can also come to think of this scenario in our own experience. Na sometimes no, na mga instructions kay hatag sa tuha, then we pretend to know everything. Then we pretend to get the gist of that statement. However, we turned out to be mistaken. So do not be afraid to ask questions anyway. Since then you have been raised with Christ, set your hearts on things above, where Christ is seated at the right hand of God, according to Colossians 3:1. Now, Thomas also doubted Jesus' resurrection. And he is very famous on this. When the disciples said, "We have seen the Lord," Thomas answered, "Unless I see the holes in the nails made in his hands, I refuse to believe." Now Thomas, one of the 12 called the twin, was not with them when Jesus came. During the first time when Jesus had risen from the dead, the first time that he appeared in the midst of the disciples, Thomas was not there. I don't know where he is, but the Bible is also silent of where Thomas was. Maybe in our own, siguro, tungod kay love kay ni Thomas sa Jesus, then para magpahungaw siya sa iyang kagool, ninggawas siya. But during the time nga napakita si Ginoong Jesus diha sa mga disipulo, wala si Thomas. For Thomas, the news is too good to be true. Sa diha nga gisultian siya sa disciples, "Hoy Thomas, nabuhi na biya sa Jesus." That was too good to be true for Thomas. Ha? No? Murag kung sa iya pa tinuod ba ni? I would like to conclude that Thomas believed that Jesus had risen, but he wanted some proof. So natay mga tawag na to na sa mga skeptic persons. No, nga skeptic people or have this motto nga to see is to believe. Although he has this faith, he believed that Jesus had resurrected. However, he wanted to have the proof. That was Thomas. "Unless I see the nails marks in his hands and put my finger where the nails were and put my hand into his side, I will not believe." Following Christ's death in the apparent end of his ministry, the disciples became afraid of what the Jews might do to him. So, ning-adto sila sa room, ning-adto sila sa upper room, and then gipang-lock nila, point of entry, para wala yung makasulod ng mga intruders. Kaya they were afraid if they will be the next to be crucified or the next to be stoned. So, makita ni mo nga si Thomas, siguro aning nga time is wagin siya nakadlok sa mga intruders, kinamon siya sa gawas mo siya sa sulod sa upper room. And suddenly, although the doors were locked and guarded against intruders, Jesus appeared in the midst of his disciples and greeted them with words, "Peace be with you." Kung sa inyong kaugalingon nga, panguna-una, kung na person nga mo appear and kalit in the midst, what would you feel? Di ba ka managad kalit, uy, may multo. But then, during the time when Jesus appeared in the midst of the disciples, huwag man sila nanagan. Kabalo mo ang sa ilahang response. What a glorious revelation that must have been to those sad and bewildered disciples. How it must have consoled their drooping spirits and elevated their faith. Our Messiah has risen. No? Excited kayo sila nga, uy, ang Ginoo, ang ato ang Messiah has risen. When I take a look on the Greek word of the word doubt, no, kaya mo refer ito sa Greek or sa Hebrew para ma-understand natin kung saan magiging meaning sa doubt. So, in Greek word, it means this tadzo. So, this tadzo. It means to waver, to hesitate, to be uncertain about something. Yes, he believed, but he was not certain. He wanted to have proof. Yet, if we are honest, we have to admit that we too waver between faith and doubt. Sometimes in our life, natin na ng mga circumstances, but come down eventually in favor of faith. In the course of our lives, we gain knowledge through direct experience, deduction, or reasoning, and through putting our faith in what others tell us. Sometimes, mas mutuo pa ka sa gisulti ni Tarpulano or sa gisulti ni Tarpulano compared to sa gisulti sa Biblia. There are people who are like that. Evident na kayo, but then they're really trying to doubt. And then social research point to the fact that more than 75% of our knowledge comes from accepting what others tell us. So for example, I have stomach upset, also my stomach pain. But to the pharmacy, and then the pharmacist would recommend you take this one. Sometimes, dili pa kahit ang mutuo, it's because naatay sila nga, naka-experience po the same. And then, sa lihan, nag-iinom nila, naulian siya. No? Sometimes when I board in a plane, I would not bother to ask the flight license of the pilot, not unless we experience turbulence in our lives. And however, sometimes in our lives, we also experience these circumstances. Now, according to Ellen G. White, let your heart and mind be fully persuaded to the Lord. And when we say fully persuaded to the Lord, it would mean trust and faith in God 100%. Jesus replied, I tell you the truth, if you have faith and do not doubt, you can say to this mountain, go, throw yourself into the sea, and it will be done. If you have believed, you will receive whatever you ask for in prayer. And this is one of my favorite text given to me by my foster grandfather. No? Inday, ako nang ihatag sa imong nga text. If you believe, you will always receive whatever you ask for in prayer. Only believe. Only believe in God. Now, Thomas also, aside that he doubted Christ's resurrection, he was also convinced of Jesus' resurrection, as recorded in John 20:26 to 27. Although no clear explanation is given to us in Scripture as to why Thomas missed the first appearance of Jesus, or Thomas missed that first post-resurrection meeting with the Lord, he appears to have been committed to staying in close touch with his fellow disciples, despite his doubts. And we should not overlook the characteristics of Thomas. When next Jesus appears to the disciples, on the second appearance of Jesus, Thomas was present and experienced the wonder of seeing the risen Christ face to face. And they're so fortunate, no? Na face to face yun nila nakita ang Ginoo. Jesus responds to Thomas. Sa pagwala nagsulti si Thomas, but God sees his heart. Plea for physical proof in the most gentle and non-judgmental manner. Put your finger here, see my hand, reach out your hand and put it into my side. Stop doubting and believe. So, second appearance ni Jesus or Thomas. Nangayo magka-proof, doon. Tanawa, ako ang nail, o sana, uno por uno, I don't know kung unsay size sa nail. Ay gamit, but look at my hand. And then touch my side. Stop doubting and believe. Immediately, Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. You of little faith, he said, why did you doubt? No, so isn't it interesting that Jesus did not reject Thomas' attitude but responded to it? How glad we should be that God accepts us as we are, not as He would like us to be. Thomas was a committed person. The time he was able to have a face-to-face encounter with Jesus, he committed himself. According to James 4:8, come near to God and He will come near to you. Wash your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. So, i-admonish na ni Jesus, no? Sa diha ng muduot sa Ginoo mo doon sa tuwa. We should always wash our hands, sinners, and purify our hearts. We doubters or we double-minded. After that, Jesus experienced, he was convinced, he confessed Jesus as Lord and God. The palpable irony of the story is that from the mouth of the man who has subsequently been labeled as doubting Thomas came one of the greatest expressions of faith. My Lord and my God, Ginoo mo Diyos ko. And from amongst the disciple, Thomas was the only one, or gi-address niya sa Jesus as God. A week later, his disciples were in the house again, and Thomas went with him. Though the doors were locked, Jesus came and stood among them and said, peace be with you. And so, Jesus said to Thomas, stop doubting and believe. And Thomas said to him, my Lord and my God. Then Jesus told him, because you have seen me, you have believed. Blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. Mao na siya'y isulti ni Jesus. Tungod kay Thomas, nakita man nimo nga naanak ko, nakita nimo ang ako ang kamot, na-touch nimo ako ang side, then mutuo ka. But Jesus said, blessed are those who have not seen and yet have believed. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. Do you believe in this? By the time we believe in God, we will never die. Why? Because death has been likened into just a sleep. And just will just wake us up, just like Lazarus. Come out. A According to the Greek word, believe means pistu. Dili, pistiha. Pistu. Pistu. To think to be true. To be persuaded of. To entrust a thing to one. Now, as Thomas doubts or is moved by seeing for himself the physical evidence in Christ's hands and side, the unbeliever suddenly leaps beyond the other disciples and cries, "My Lord, my God." Up until this time, none of the disciples had actually addressed Jesus as God, as what I have said earlier. Some would address Jesus as Messiah, Son of God, but not God. It was only Thomas. In an instant, Thomas goes from not believing that Jesus has risen to recognizing that He is God. So according to John 14:1, that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Let not your heart be troubled, but believe in God. Okay? So Jesus accepted his acknowledgement, but gently reproved his unbelief. Thomas, because thou hast seen me, thou hast believed. Blessed are they that have not seen, and yet he believed. According to AHD, the faith of Thomas would have been more pleasing to Christ if he had been willing to believe upon the testimony of his brethren. Sa diha ang tulong ta siya diha sa iyahang disipulo, ma-please, paunta yun niyang Ginoo. Should the word have followed the example of Thomas, no one would believe unto salvation. For all who receive Christ must do so through the testimony of others. We have not seen God, we have not seen Jesus, but why are we here? Why do we believe Jesus? No? Kung maupan niya ang ato ang sundon, si Thomas na to cease to believe, wala din mo tuong nga na salvation, isn't it? Diba? Wala din mo tuong. However, Ellen G. White says that if the faith of Thomas would have been, iyang i-describe nga, the faith of Thomas would have been more pleasing if he had been willing to believe upon the testimony of his brothers. Now, even though Thomas had earned negative label that he doubted Jesus' resurrection, he was not lacking in some very good qualities also. Thomas is a down-to-earth and plain spoken. So during Jesus' long farewell speech, farewell speech before his crucifixion, he was bold enough to interrupt, asking him to speak plainly instead of talking in the kind of poetic and flowery language that he clearly found baffling. And then second, Thomas was also brave and zealous. So he displayed great courage and loyalty when he said that let us also go that we may die with him. And we can also share lessons, or we can also draw lessons from the life of Thomas. First, those who wrestle with doubts can with Christ's help come through to a glorious certainty of faith and great spiritual effectiveness. Christ has great sympathy to those who cry to Him, I will believe, help my unbelief. If you are going to read Mark 9:24, there was a father with a demon-possessed boy, and then during naas sila sa crowd, he approached Jesus and he said, Jesus, if you can, please heal my boy. And then Jesus asked the father, how long has he been like this? And then the father responded, since childhood. Jesus, please help us if you can. If you can. Tanawa? Ang iyang statement, if you can. But Jesus said, if I can, if you believe, then it will be done. And so immediately the boy's father exclaimed, I do believe, help me overcome my unbelief. Second lesson. Thomas reminds us that we receive faith in and through the community of parents, friends, and church, most especially sa Dawn Church. Now, community matters a lot. And when Jesus appears in the disciples, Thomas is absent. So, later on, he was able to realize na wala man po sa kuang kagrupo. And so, on the second appearance, he was there. Third, Oh, okay. So it isn't Jesus' intention that we follow Him in isolation from one another. It's incredibly important for us to be connected and regularly gathering with other Christians. And this connection allows us to be encouraged by each other's stories and our shared experiences. That's how important going to church is, to have fellowship with one another so that we may also be strengthened by the experiences of our brethren. Third lesson, Thomas reminds us that faith is not simply as assent or as agreement to doctrines and propositions of faith. Yet he dramatizes for us that while it is vitally important that we believe that certain doctrines are true, we must believe in God and God revealed in Jesus. So we will always believe in God and God alone. Fourth, Thomas shows that Jesus cares about our sincere questions. The way that Jesus spoke to the disciples was often vague, and he even entertained Thomas' questions. Naturally, the disciples don't necessarily understand what he's talking about. That is why Thomas was really bold in asking questions. So do not be afraid to ask. If we are confused, much more when we are dealing with the message of God. Fifth and last lesson that we can get from the life of Thomas, a doctor gives lessons of faith. Thomas' moment of bravery didn't entirely define him, and neither should this moment of doubt. We all have moments we're proud of, and there are moments we wish we could forget. So constant beholding to Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith. Now, Thomas had been most unreasonable, according to Ellen G. White, in dictating the conditions of his faith. But Jesus, by his generous love and consideration, broke down all the barriers. Unbelief is seldom overcome by controversy. Di ba sa diha nga wala nito si Thomas? Wala siya gi-reproof ni Jesus. Wala siya ibadlong, wala siya gikasabaan. And not even any controversy. It is rather put upon self-defense and finds new support and excuse, but let Jesus, in His love and mercy, be revealed as the crucified Savior, and from many once unwilling lips will be heard the acknowledgement of Thomas, my Lord and my God. Now, before I'm going to end this last statement, I am going to request my little boy to sing for us this morning, so that we would ponder upon also the lessons that we get from the life of Thomas.